What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined by Aidan and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. On today's episode, we'll be discussing all the action from the past week, another new net in Iman Shumpert, the rumours surrounding other possible roster moves, Joe Harris's streak ending, and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BK to UK Pod, and subscribe to us on YouTube by searching UK Nets Fans, where you can watch all of our episodes. But with that out of the way, gentlemen, on to this week. And there's a new net in the house. Well, we've re-signed an old net from last year. Iman Shumpert will be donning the black and white again this season. What do you guys think of the new signing?
Yeah, happy we made this type of move instead of obviously guaranteeing one of the two ways. I think with the clock getting on yesterday, we were all a wee bit nervous that they potentially might have just done that because they couldn't get someone in. But yeah, someone like Shump, we obviously know him quite well from his time with the Nets last year. We only saw him for 13 games, but we know that he plays hard, comes in good on defense, and obviously that's something that we need at the moment. When he came in last year, we were in a bit of a rut, and then we ended up going 9-4 with his time with the team, and then he obviously only ended up leaving because Wilson Chandler came back in after his time out, which is, he probably would have hung around, I reckon, if Chandler wasn't coming back in. But yeah, I mean, he was a popular guy when he was with the Nets, and he enjoyed his time with the Nets. I remember that after he was released, I think he actually quoted Shams' tweet when he was waived. And he said, "The Brooklyn Nets are a first-class organisation from top to bottom. It's great to be with you guys, even for a short stay. I'm around." And obviously, he is around because he's back again. Nets Daily pointed out on Twitter last night that with the addition of Shumpert, that the Nets now have 5 players have been to the finals, I think 12 times. And obviously, that type of experience is hugely beneficial for us, as we know it's a whole different ballgame when you come at the playoffs. And obviously, veteran presence is completely underrated. So yeah, delighted with this move.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, as Aidan pointed out, he brings defence, which is something we've needed all season. And whilst maybe his offensive output isn't up to much, I mean, when he was with us for that kind of brief stint between November and December in 2019, which, I mean, saying that was only the last season, but it just seems mental. Like, it seems so much longer ago than that. And although he hasn't played for anyone since he was waived by us, and I think there can certainly be some reservations about that. Obviously, what's he kind of been up to for the past year? Has he been keeping in shape and stuff like that? But certainly based on the last time, yeah, it's certainly a good pickup. He's previously won a championship. He done so with Kyrie at the Cavs, so he knows what it takes. And as Aidan says, kind of these veteran presences are underrated. And given that he has been out a year, I think anything he does come in and give it as a bonus. I'd kind of seen someone put it that way when we were signing Pell, who'd been out for a while, and just kind of for any free agency, and I think that was quite a nice way to look at it, rather than have these lofty expectations and expect him to put up certain numbers. Just let him come in, do his thing. If he does better than you'd kind of initially expect, well, fantastic. If not, he's cost you nothing, and yeah, it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I think he's not going to be a first option, but he's certainly an experienced player that we'll be able to call upon, and maybe someone similar to Bruce Brown, who's obviously got that defensive kind of ability. The players who can come in late in games when we really need to defend the lead. So yeah, happy with this one.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like, I think his role is going to be a lot more defined than it was with his last little stint with us. A wicked comparison you just did with Bruce Brown. It's just like, we don't need you to score any points. When you're on the floor, just concentrate on your defense, which is something obviously he's very good at. Obviously, the box score doesn't really jump out. In the 13 games he played for the Nets back in his last stretch were all off the bench, and he recorded 4.2 points, 2.6 rebounds, just under 1 steal, just under 1 assist, and only 0.2 blocks. So, if you were just looking at the box score, you're like, okay, he doesn't really lock people down on the defensive end, but he's got that energy, he's got that length, and the championship experience, like you say, is invaluable. I think he's just going to be a nice steadying influence to this second unit that I think we've had our problems with, and we've kind of said on previous episodes of the podcast that it's becoming a bit of a problem. So I think to give KD a bit of a breather and to maybe give Jeff Green a bit of a breather, it's a really, really good move. Although we could see some maybe Iman Shumpert, Jeff Green 4-5 combinations. Yeah, I think if the Nets had signed another guard, I think I would have lost my rag a bit. So this is between him and Pell, I think is a really, really positive sign. We actually got a listener question, which we'll come on to a little bit later on from Sam Hayward on Twitter, asking about these signings. But yeah, so we'll save our chat for them. But I think, yeah, well, welcome back, Shump. Obviously, the Nets locker room and the Nets Instagram is about to get a little bit more fashionable, because he does love a little fit to drop off when he comes to the games. But yeah, happy Shump's back. Low risk, possibly high reward. So yeah, a really good bit of business for me. Obviously, before Shumpert did get announced yesterday at time of recording, Nets Twitter was absolutely buzzing with rumours about JaVale McGee and even Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. What did you guys think of those rumours? Were they likely to happen? Who would you have most wanted to join the Nets out of the guys that have been spoken about?
I mean, last week we kind of touched on the JaVale McGee links, and then in the kind of days since that podcast, as you say, Kevin Love and Andre Drummond were all linked. So all at the Cavs, who I think we certainly are maybe owe a wee favour from giving them Jarrett Allen. But I mean, I think a lot of them, with the exception of McGee, I couldn't really see Drummond or Love actually happening. I think there was a lot, like they had to be bought out for starters, and then there was no guarantee that they'd just accept kind of pennies to join us, because we're not exactly in a position to offer them similar wages. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a really tough one. I think there were ways for it to have been done, and to have signed either Drummond or Love would have been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I don't know if we could still maybe sign McGee, because I don't think it would take much. I think, as Aidan pointed out last week, a second round pick should probably do that one if we were really desperate. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were too realistic. I think it was just a lot of, the Nets need a kind of big man. Let's just kind of throw a few names out there, and obviously all the buyout talks with Drummond and Love and stuff. I think it was just folk putting two and two together, really, more than there being any kind of legs to it. But yeah, if something happens, it's fantastic, because I think if we sign Drummond, who would be my preferred option of the three. I mean, if we weren't already the kind of favourites to come out of the East based on the three stars we already do have, that would catapult us into a completely different dimension. And to have 4 stars like that would be pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, originally I only really was taking the JaVale McGee rumour seriously purely because I felt like it made the most sense for everyone involved. He obviously wasn't getting a game for the Cavs at the time where the rumours started. He was kind of third in that rotation there in terms of centres, and he wasn't seeing any minutes. But I've kind of went off that slightly because they've started playing him a bit, which I find interesting. And I'll obviously go on to what the kind of with Drummond, I actually think that might be a factor in the fact that he may be looking to be bought out. In terms of the Kevin Love rumours, I honestly couldn't see that happening. Even when it got announced, I can't remember who tweeted it. It was one of the Cavs beat reporters or SB Nation writers that basically said the Nets are interested in Kevin Love. And I think within a couple of hours, he ended up tweeting saying the Cavs aren't interested in buying out Kevin Love at all. So that kind of put an end to that one. Now for the Drummond rumour, I think that's completely different. I would actually go out and say that there's a good chance that this one actually happens. For similar reasons that I said that the Harden deal would eventually happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I felt like it was going to happen eventually. The reason being is that reliable reporters are actually writing about this. Zach Harper, Kevin O'Connor, these are guys that obviously get the information straight from the horse's mouth. And if they're writing about it, they're not speculating the report, and they've heard things, and that which makes me think that this could eventually happen. I don't know when, but potentially when it comes to buyout season, that Drummond could be a net. Obviously, in terms of Drummond, he would be my preferred guy purely because he solves a lot of the defensive and rebounding issues that the Nets have had for quite a while. It'd be great to see him on the Nets, and obviously he'll be, if he's going to get bought out, he's going to want to get a ring. And personally, his best chance in doing that is obviously starting for the Nets. And obviously for the Cavs, they want Jarrett Allen to be their centre of the future. and Drummond gets in the way of that. So if he wants to win a ring and the Cavs want Jarrett Allen to be their starting centre, it makes sense to buy him out.
Yeah, I think you guys have put it beautifully. I think Andre Drummond would be my preference as well. We lost a walk-in double-double in Jarrett Allen, and Andre Drummond is just a hench version of Jarrett Allen in that respect. Like he's ridiculously strong. He's ridiculously good at crashing the boards and getting rebounds. Obviously does his work on the offensive end as well, which we don't really need so much, but I think we're a team that could convince people to really kind of fit a role, fit a mold, and like, look, we don't need you on the offensive end as much. So, save your energy and just, put yourself in defensive player of the year talk potentially. I know his current contract for this year is 28.7 million. So I don't, you'd have to buy out a hell of a lot of money to come on to join this team. But, there's plenty of examples of other players, leaving money on the table and stuff like that to win it all. But so, that could be a thing. So yeah, I don't know if it does happen. I would love it to happen. But yeah, you make a very, very strong point, a strong case for that, Aidan, of it happening once it does come. But I suppose time will tell. I think we've still got one open roster spot, I believe. So yeah, the roster stands at 14. So who knows? We've got, I think, trade deadline is March. So, it could be another 4 or 5 pods before our roster is actually settled for the end of this season. So I'm sure this will keep rumbling on. So on to slightly more serious talking points, really. On Tuesday, the Pacers announced that their new sign-in, obviously former Nets fan favorite Caris LeVert, underwent successful surgery to treat renal cell carcinoma of his left kidney. No further treatment is needed, and Caris is expected to make a full recovery and will be out indefinitely. So I tweeted at the time, I got sort of put my hands up and said I had to Google it. But renal cell carcinoma is the most common type of kidney cancer. Although it's a serious disease, finding it and treating it early makes it more likely that you'll be cured. I guess there's not a lot to say, really. I'm sure I speak for all three of us when I say that we wish Caris a speedy recovery. What did you guys think when you saw the news?
First of all, absolutely great news that Caris doesn't require any further treatment at this time, obviously after they removed the cancer from his kidney. But it's absolutely heartbreaking that the mass was cancerous at such an unusual age for the disease. And obviously, individually as an athlete, you just don't expect things like that to happen to such healthy guys. And it just shows you it can happen to absolutely everyone. But I take my hat off to the Pacers medical staff for discovering that. And yeah, I think so many people have said it on Twitter that there's a good chance that this has actually saved Caris's life, which is incredible. I mean, he may not be in Brooklyn anymore, but yeah, just to obviously mimic what you just said, Matt, we all love Caris, and he'll be a net for life in our eyes. And I hope he stays healthy, and I can't wait to see him back in the court.
Yeah, I mean, going to echo the pair of your thoughts. Fantastic news. You couldn't really have asked for anything better than the kind of news that we got in the past few days about the situation. Obviously, we were concerned when we initially heard the news, and as Aidan rightly says, this has ultimately saved his life. So whilst we've lost him as a net, I mean, I think you'd rather know that that trade has saved his life than keep him and obviously something maybe more sinister happens. So thankfully that's not the case. And yeah, hopefully he's back on the court soon. We can see him back in Brooklyn. He can rightly get applauded for all he's done during his time with the franchise.
Nice. Yeah, I think, it's one of them. It's just like you can't say it enough. I think that, just wishing him all the best. And I think you could be accused of being dramatic when you say that this trade potentially has saved his life, but it's real and it's a fact. So yeah, all the best to Caris. Moving on to something slightly more lighthearted. It's weird to kind of transition from stuff like that to slightly more lighthearted things, but the game against Atlanta saw the end of the streak. It's a dark day to be a Nets fan. It was 79 games with Joe Harris making a 3-pointer. I think I dropped in the Nets fans Discord chat that you know, it did coincide with a bunch of us buying a T-shirt that said Joey Bucket's Fist Pump Appreciation Club. So I think we might have jinxed it. But what do you guys think of Joey snapping the streak?
I mean, yeah, that's what I was going to say. We all bought those T-shirts. I also made that graphic that if you've not already seen T-shirt on UK Nets fans store, so check that out. But yeah, we were singing his praises, and then that happened. And yeah, I mean, obviously the game went to overtime, and I think the kind of thoughts on Nets Twitter was just give Joe the ball. Don't care what the result is. Just make sure the streak continues. And obviously, it was a really poor night for Joe. I think he finished with 6 points. He was 0 for 3 from 3. And yeah, obviously games like that happen. And there's been games in the past where it's going to be close, and he'll come up and he'll get it. And it's like, oh, phew, thank God. But yeah, it's over. But to be a bit more positive, the new streak has begun. So yeah, here's to him breaking that record, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I can't lie. I was fully invested in this streak. I mean, I was constantly looking out in games for Joe getting that first 3, and it's just kind of like the streak continues. But yeah, I was gutted when he filled out in the game, because I just assumed that he was eventually going to get one, even into overtime. But yeah, the good news is that Joe wasn't the Undertaker at WrestleMania, and he's still young, and there's plenty of time to start a new streak. And I'm sure he'll probably end up beating that one pretty soon, probably his next one. But yeah, in terms of Joe's game, obviously Joe's development over the last few years, he's improved on so many other aspects of his game, getting to the rim, putting in a solid effort defensively. He doesn't have to rely on the 3, which obviously means he's still an impact on the court, even when he's not making those shots. He's going to make those shots, but he's still an impact. But yeah, I mean, he's an elite shooter in the league, and he's going to get scoring threes again. He already did the next night, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's the difference between someone like Joe Harris and someone like Landry Shamet. Joe Harris has got so many more sort of strings to his bow that if the three's not falling, he can still make an impact elsewhere. That's a great point. But yeah, you're quite right in saying that he was back with a vengeance. The following game, Joe Harris was 5 from 9 from 3 against OKC. So I think he was just like, well, I'm not going to go in another game without it. Joe Harris is still 3rd all time on the Nets 3 points made list. So Joe Harris is 3rd with 656 made threes, not far behind Kerry Kittles in 2nd with 687. He's got a bit of a ways to go to catch the leader, Nets royalty, Jason Kidd, who has 813 made threes. But he'll get there. I mean, I think I had a look, and the current leader for consecutive made threes in consecutive games, I think, is Steph with like 140, 150 odds. So it's not like he was gonna go into the all-time history books, but yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have these little wrinkles running out throughout the season. And yeah, the streak 2 is underway, and we'll keep track of it, I'm sure. So that's the main news from this week. So let's look back into the games that were, and we're recording on a Sunday afternoon, so we're a couple of hours out from the Wizards game. But as we touching all the wood we can, it was a clean sweep of a week. 3 wins, starting with the win against Miami, taking that game 98-85. It was a bit of a grind out, I feel. How do you guys think that second game of the series went, and taking that series 2-0?
Yeah, I mean, you just need to look at the score to see that it was obviously our best defensive effort of the season so far. Probably one of our worst offensive efforts so far, but definitely the best defensive effort. And I mean, holding a team like Miami to only 14 points in the fourth quarter is unheard of for the Nets, but in the league in general. And it was the entire team that put in a solid effort on the D, which made that happen. James Harden, obviously, he came in clutch in the fourth quarter. You know what they say big time players make big time plays, and we have just got some fantastic options that when it does come to the fourth quarter, we can rely on guys and to try and ground out victories. And it's a great thing to have. Obviously, that's now us 2-0 against the Heat so far this season. I know they've been missing kind of big names with Butler and Hero, but obviously they were at the finals last year, and they do have a deep team. So I think to go 2-0 in the first 2 games against the Heat, regardless of who's out injured for them, we can be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway for me from this one was the fact the big three contributed 56 of our points. Obviously, very little of a contribution from the bench outside Uncle Jeff, who got 10. And yeah, I mean, the game was a really close one pretty much for the first three quarters. And then, as Aidan says, we just kind of turned things up a level. We got kind of hot scoring, and they just couldn't score in the fourth. And that ultimately led us to what kind of looks like quite a comfortable win in the end, although, as you rightly said, Matt, the game was quite a bit of a grind. Kind of, we scored, they scored, and it was really back and forth for the first three quarters anyway. And yeah, I mean, after letting Bam score 41 points in the previous meeting to then put him down to just 26, I mean, that's an obvious improvement. We can't always be giving teams and players on these teams like the career night. So it was obviously, we clearly learned how to deal with him despite us still having the kind of worries over what kind of the future of our centre position is. But it is good to know that we can lock these guys down. Obviously, it maybe takes an extra game just to kind of get used to them, but we know it's possible. And I think that's a good sign for the playoffs as well, because when you're playing teams maybe as many as 7 times, you're going to know them inside out. And if we're able to kind of do that within 1 or 2 games against a team, well, I'd like to think that no team's going to score whatsoever if we reach a game 7, because we'll know them that well. But yeah, I mean, I feel happy with this starting the week for win, so you can't really complain with that one.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the making those adjustments, because it's obviously something that the Nets have struggled with historically, is being quite rigid in the systems that they play and the tactics that they execute. But learning from that previous game and, you know, noticing the things we need to change and actually making those changes from a coaching standpoint and from a player awareness, basketball IQ standpoint is really, really good. So yeah, that's an excellent point. The Nets only shot 28.9% from free as a team. So, you know, it was a bit of a brick fest between the two teams. I thought it was interesting that KD and Harden both got sort of in the 20s, but Harden only took 10 shots to get there, whereas KD took 21. So just in terms of volume, I thought that was an interesting thing. But yeah, in terms of opponents' points allowed, I think it was the fewest opponents' points allowed since March 2019 when we played the Pistons. So, you know, with I'm gonna, you know, obviously Miami were having a terrible night shooting wise, but I'm going to claim it as great defense. And, you know, this team is all about the firepower, and people say we can't defend or it's going to be an issue, but, you know, it's a slightly historic defensive performance. I'm going to put it down to, just don't look back at the game. So we followed that up with a 132-128 win over the Hawks. Another overtime game. More free basketball, as they'd say. So KD and Harden both score over 30. Kyrie, again, shooting 11 of 17 from the field for 64.7%. A scary hours officially here, can we say, after that game?
Yeah, I think we can say scary hours is most definitely here. Obviously, I touched on it in the last game. This time they combined for 89 of our points, which is a huge amount. Some teams, well, Miami didn't even score that many against us, and there's 3 of our players doing that just between them. So that was very, very impressive. Obviously, this game was the game that the streak ended, and that was, I think some folk would have sacrificed the win to ensure the streak continued. But yeah, I mean, I think another thing that was quite bad about this one was 4 Hawks players hitting 20 plus. We made this one a lot closer than it really needed to be. And yeah, it was a really kind of annoying, stressful game, and given the kind of time it tipped off, could have really done without overtime here in the UK, because watching those final few minutes, I mean, I can't say I remember much of them because I was half asleep, but yeah, yet another win, and the big 3 stepped up when we really needed them and got us that win. So yeah, having been beaten by the Hawks previously in the season, again, we're learning, we're now beating them. So yeah, a lot of good things from just those first 2 games, and obviously we'll go on to talk about the third game of the week just shortly.
Yeah, I think that might be the last time we play the Hawks this season, or there might be another one. But if it is the last time, I'm absolutely delighted, because that must be what it's like to play against the 2018 Nets team, 2018-19 Nets team, because they are tenacious. Yeah, really kind of good young players that have got a good future ahead of them, regardless of the type of basketball they play, because it's not the most attractive style, but they do get the job done, despite not having great defense. But yeah, once again, obviously it went to overtime. not great for us in the UK, but also not great for our big three, who really could have done without those extra minutes because we've been playing so much recently. But they managed to get the job done, as you mentioned, Matt. Big three really kind of stood out. Irvin 26, Durant 32, Harden 31 with 15 assists. I mean, you can't complain at all. But on another note, obviously, you see the box score. They kind of usually look at the numbers, assists, and the points, assists, and rebounds. The turnover numbers have looked much better so far. Obviously, we only had 9 turnovers in the Hawks game. We only had 7 in the Miami game. That's much better compared to what we're used for. We're hitting that in the first quarter last week, and then going up to over 20 in turnovers. So yeah, it's great to see an improvement there as well. The last thing that obviously I noticed was that I loved the comments from Lloyd Pierce at the end of the game. He said that he had to take Capella out the second half because he was so exhausted trying to defend the small ball nets. That's obviously the benefit of small ball. We can obviously see the weakness at times, but obviously when you play the small ball correctly and you can tire out these big guys when they're trying to defend you, that's why they do it. And obviously, long may that continue if we can stop bigs from being impactful on us because we're tiring them out.
Yeah, nice. And it's not like Capella's any slouch as well. It's not like he's one of these lumbering, mid-30s bigs, like old school kind of type bigs. So it's nice that we can run the guys that have got a sniff of athleticism about them ragged as well. So that's a nice point. I noticed that as well as combining for 89 points, the big three also were a combined 47% from free for that game, which is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I hope that is the last time we play the Hawks, because if I have to watch one more game of Trae Young jumping into people and getting fouls, I'm going to tear my hair out, I think. I put a tweet about it recently just to say I'm not sure if it is a foul. If it's very, very clever gamesmanship and working within the rules, then fair play. But I think he's in that tier of Kyle Lowry of like, if he's on your team, he's absolutely great. But if you're playing against him, you absolutely hate the bloke. Yeah, we shall see. But yeah, another good win. And rounding out the week was another absolutely dominant win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Nets win 147-125. KD was resting, so we only had James Harden and Kyrie Irving on the floor for us. Guys, what did you think of the redemption game against OKC, who had obviously beaten us earlier on in the season?
Yeah, obviously, no KD. He obviously only got announced about 6 hours before that they were going to rest him, but they knew as soon as that Atlanta game is finished that he wasn't going to be playing this one, because I think he played near to 50 minutes again. But yeah, gave us the first look of Irvin and Harden as a duo. Both absolutely excellent on Friday, both shooting over 60% in the night. Harden triple-double. An absolute joy to watch. I mean, I don't know how people can't enjoy watching this guy play, because I think he plays the game so well, and I just think it's just a pleasure to be able to watch him every game. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Joe Harris back to his usual shooting standard with 5 of 9 from 3. But yeah, out with the usual suspects. Player of the night for me was Bruce Brown. Incredible performance from Bruce again defensively. He's absolutely everywhere in the court, and he actually shot 9 from 11 on the night, giving him 19 points. And he was obviously starting because KD was out, and he blended in perfectly with them. Like the Hawks, obviously OKC are always going to score a lot of points due to their style of play, but we got the job done and extended our winning streak to 4-0, so long may that continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the first time ever since we've done kind of season 2 of the podcast, we've had a winning week. Obviously in between, we've got a game tonight, but we're not counting that one. I mean, yeah, what a win this was. I think it was the joint highest points in regulation that we've ever scored with in franchise history, obviously. And I think the last time we done that was in the 1980s. So, I mean, I think that just goes to show how good a game that was, that sometimes it takes teams overtime or double overtime to hit that much, and we've managed it in one game. And obviously, the fact we managed 76 points in the first half certainly sent us well on our way to achieving that. And I mean, we've kind of spoken about being jinxies and stuff, buying the Harris t-shirts, and obviously me with my predictions and them always kind of going the other way. I'm going to stake a claim for being the reason for this one, because I'd said to Aidan prior to the game, I'm feeling really tired. I think I'm just going to watch the first half. Net's done that. And I was like, I'm going to need to stay up now, haven't I? So, yeah, clearly we've got some magic, like voodoo power over the Nets, and whatever we say at some point goes, because, yeah, I mean, all barring, I think, Chios and TJ, who got garbage time minutes. So, I mean, if you kind of take them out, I think they got, 3 minutes each or something. Everyone else was in double figures. And yeah, I think we kind of came close to having nearly every player in double figures a few games ago. So, yeah, to kind of have that full team involvement was really good. And as Aidan says, Bruce Brown was the star of the show, even if James Harden and Kyrie both were exceptional. And Harden maybe looked more like the James Harden we were expecting, taking more shots, driving to the basket more. But yeah, Bruce Brown, yeah, becoming a firm fan favourite. And yeah, I think certainly him starting every now and then isn't a bad thing at all, because you kind of get games where he'll start and then he'll not kind of really play much in the next few games. But whatever Nash is doing to him in those few days where he doesn't play as much, long may that continue as well, because it's clearly working and has Bruce fired up, and he just seems to come out and ball out every night, despite that not being his kind of main thing. As we said with Shump, he's not really going to be expected for his offensive output. Neither's Brown, but Bruce is still able to come up and do that. So I think that's great that he's able to kind of flick that switch and do that, as well as continuing to contribute defensively as well.
Yeah, it's great to see a more of a team performance. It's great to see this second unit, having some production. I think Nets Daily tweeted that the last time 9 players on the same team were in double figures scoring was 30 years ago. I think that was like a Nuggets Bullets game back in the day. So yeah, really, really complete performance. Just everything seems to be clicking. Like you say, it's nice to see James Harden being a bit more aggressive in the game. Bruce Brown is an absolute hero. He takes like quite smart shots as well. I think he's again quite efficient. But talking about efficiency, Kyrie's 25 points was from 10 of 16 again, which was 62.5%. I know it's against the OKC Thunder, but I think we said on previous episodes that we kind of play worse against the worst teams and better against the better teams. So these are the games that we should really be running up the score and getting our rotation players more confidence and things like that, so we can take that into the bigger games. But yeah, another great win. So that brings us on to some listener questions. You can always ask us questions if you get in touch on social at UK Nets Fans, or you can email uknetsfans@gmail.com. We'll kick off from Twitter. Sam Hayward said, "Are we happy with the Pell pickup and the Shumpert re-signing? How do you think it will reflect on court when the Nets are with and without the ball?" Obviously, we touched on our thoughts about the Iman Shumpert pickup, but I think it's good. The Nets need more size and more defense. And that's what we got. Looking forward to seeing Pell, especially, who I think is available tonight against the Wizards. And I just want to see a big body blocking shots and getting rebounds. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, neither are maybe the kind of star names that you'd like to see in, like everyone does. They're kind of run-of-the-mill kind of players, but I think players who will certainly come in and do a job. We kind of spoke on Pell last week and pointed out some of his kind of accolades in his career. Obviously, has a lot of experience playing different teams and in different countries. So yeah, obviously, I think he'll come in handy. And as you say, Shump, as we said earlier on, comes in, brings defence. So yeah, the pair of them, I think, will certainly help us out. Whether when we're on the ball, I mean, I can't see them doing much offensively, but certainly when we're off the ball, I think that's where we're going to see them shine the most.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm on the same page with Sean Marks when he makes his free agent signings, but you can see his intention is on the defensive end with bringing these two guys in. Something that I didn't mention earlier, actually, when Shumpert was playing with the Nets last year, they jumped from the 28th best team in defensive efficiency to 14th, which shows his impact, that he can bring that defensive kind of doggedness there. But yeah, as well, yeah, same with Pell. Again, he's just going to block shots. I don't think he's going to be taking too many shots like Shump. But yeah, that's what they're there for, is to bring that defensive impact to the team.
Yeah, nice. Time will tell. But yeah, it's nice to sort of, the Nets Twitter has been kind of clamoring for these kind of additions, and that's exactly what we've got. So yeah, it looks like our front office never really disappoints on these kind of things. So hopefully it'll be a good signing. The Tyler on Discord, shout out to Tyler. Not specifically Nets related, but would be good to discuss the East. With 20 games in, so who's going to be finishing 1 to 8 in the East? I'll let you guys go first, and then I'll say mine.
Good question. I'd say I'm going to stick with my guns. Nets, first seed. Then I'll say Philly. The Bucks in third. Pacers, Celtics at 4 and 5, but could be interchangeable. But I'll go Pacers, then Celtics. I think Miami will jump up to the 6th seed. And then for my 2, 7th and 8th seed, that'll probably sneak in. I'm going to go Atlanta and then the Hornets. I'm going to go the Hornets will sneak in there because I watched them last night and they looked good.
So for mine, I think it'll be the Sixers, Nets and Bucks, kind of interchangeable in those first three. I think we'd be happy either way. Obviously, we'd rather the first seed, but I think all the teams are quite closely matched and obviously have the stars. And yeah, I think it's quite hard to kind of separate them at this stage. Obviously, 72 game season, so we're kind of just over that quarter of the season mark now. But yeah, I think with regards to the rest, Pacers and Celtics 4th and 5th. I reckon the Hawks will probably next 6th, and then 7th and 8th currently occupied by the Cavs and the Hornets. I like Aidan's shout for the Heat making it in, but then you've got the Magic and the Bulls as well. And the Knicks are sitting kind of 9th directly behind the Hornets. I can't really see them doing it, and I'm not wanting to imagine them making the playoffs. But yeah, I think it's quite a difficult one to really say just yet for me anyway. I think we're maybe easier to see how things will be when we're kind of at the halfway stage of the season in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, nice. It won't surprise you to learn that I'm pretty much exactly the same in line with you guys. I've been very, very coy about where the Nets will finish, but I've put my colours to the mast, and I'm saying the Nets finishing in first, followed by Philly, the Bucks, and Boston taking the top 4. Pacers hanging around in 5th, then Miami sort it out to get 6th. I couldn't really decide who 7 and 8 would be, but you got to think, some of these teams are going to really sort it out between maybe Toronto, possibly. I know they're not having a great time of it at the moment, but you think, with Nick Nurse taking the helm, they're going to sort that out. Possibly Orlando, possibly Chicago. But then, like you guys have said, you got the Hawks sniffing around, you got the Hornets sniffing around, you got the Knicks sniffing around. So I think this year is exactly the reason why these play-in tournaments are going to be so interesting and so good. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see. But it's lovely to see like some new teams kind of making up these playoff spots. But yeah, like you say, we're only just over 20 games in, so time will tell. But yeah, that's who we reckon anyway, Tyler. Then another one from Discord, this time Elliot from Hoopin' and Luton, who, if you're watching the YouTube version of this episode, you will see Aidan and Cammy both busting out recent purchases from there. Is the hatred towards DJ massively unjustified? I base this on his off-court play. Watch during timeouts and between quarters. He's clearly one of the most liked team players by all. How important is that? So yeah, what do you guys think of DJ? Is it too much hate?
I think some of it is maybe a bit unjustified. He has been a scapegoat on some nights, but there are some nights where we've said it on many of the other podcasts this season. His kind of effort was really lacking, especially when we had Jarrett Allen. There was just such a clear difference, although to give DJ his dues in the past few weeks, he has kind of past few games perhaps, he has really kind of picked up. He's just getting on the end of lobs a bit more, being a bit more aggressive with the rebound and getting a lot of nice dunks. And yeah, he is kind of getting there. As Elliot says in his kind of question, he does a lot off court. I think he pointed out the kind of relationship he built up with Jarrett Allen. And yeah, I think he's a good guy to have around the team. But yeah, I think maybe a bit unjustified, but I wouldn't say he's completely safe from any kind of criticism, because there has been certainly games where he's not done what he really should be, especially for a player on the salary he's earning.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think anyone, especially us three, kind of doubts DJ's impact off the court. He's clearly a great teammate. Person in general, I think as well, obviously for KD and Kyrie to take those certain discounts on their contracts, just to build that 10 million just to get him here, it speaks a lot about him as a person. However, yeah, his veteran presence is obviously great, but you do need to set an example on the court as well as off it. I think we've had some great vets over the years that have provided that 100% effort on the court, and then it does trickle down to the younger guys, which I think is so important. And it's all well and good to tell a Bruce Brown to set an example on if you tell Bruce Brown that he was out of position on the last possession or something like that, and then you go and you don't play hard on defense. It's a bit of hypocrisy there, where you're just like you're telling someone to do something, then you're not doing it yourself. Vets need to set an example for younger guys, and I think for 10 million a year at this stage in his career, he needs to kind of put in a harder graft on the defensive end of the court. But yeah, as Cammy mentioned there, we have seen him elevate his game recently, especially since Harden's came in. He's getting on the end of those lobs, and obviously his best time in his career was when he was playing with Chris Paul in his prime. So you get a good playmaker like Harden coming in, it does kind of elevate someone like DeAndre Jordan's game.
Yeah, nice. I think there's good locker room guys and good sort of glue guys. You know, if you think back to your Theo Pinsons and stuff, who was like the ultimate locker room guy, but he was on, you know, £4.50 a season. So like he just given his contract and the amount of minutes he sort of drinks up, I think that's where people are being a bit more critical. It's clear that he's liked, especially by KD and Kyrie, like you say, to carve out that roster money for him. It's clear that relationship he had with Jarrett Allen with the piggybacks and all that kind of the pre-game throw ritual that they had out. But he's got to produce it on the court. He's meant to be the defensive anchor of this team, but you know, more often than not, he's just not good enough. And you've got players like Jeff Green who have got to sign on vets minimums and all this kind of stuff. And you've got guys like DeAndre Jordan who's on 10 million because, I don't want to say because of the company he keeps and because who his mates are, but from the outside looking in, there's an argument to say that's kind of what it is. So it's a bit of a shame, but I think we're quite level-headed when it comes to, you know, sort of slagging players off and stuff. We'll be as quick with the praise when they do play well. But if you have more poor performances than good performances, you know, we can only comment on what we see. But yeah, I think it's because of, you know, Jarrett Allen couldn't really get around him because of his stature and his contract. I think that's where the animosity comes from. So yeah, that's my thoughts on DJ. We had another one from Facebook, actually, from James Lewis, which is really good. What was your preconceived ideas of Harden and the Nets? What were your feelings about Harden before the trade rumors had started? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many fans, I was cautious as to what we'd actually have to give up for Harden. We saw some of the rumours floating around, and it was a lot at times, but obviously I always knew how important and crucial it would be to get the Nets to that next level where they'd be the favourites to win the championship. We said it multiple times. I think a player like Harden, when they become available, you do have to, and they want to come to your team, you do have to kind of do what you can to get it done. And I was obviously sad to give up Allen and Caris, but from what we've seen out of Harden so far, I think I strongly believe that we made the right decision there. In terms of like the second half of this question, I mean, I've never kept it a secret that I'm a massive fan of James Harden, probably more so than most. I mean, I've got his jerseys. When I went to Orlando a couple of years ago, I made sure that I was there when Houston were playing because I wanted to go and see him play. So yeah, I mean, as a fairly kind of recent fan of the NBA of the last decade or so, I love kind of elite 3-point shooting and flashy assists. So what's not to love about James Harden, really?
I mean, I think we all had our reservations. I was certainly clearly in two minds about the kind of move, and was kind of the belief it was you've got to do it, but then at times you're giving up a lot. What about the fit and stuff? But I mean, I think looking back on it, I don't know why we had these reservations. You'd make the deal 100 times out of 100, and even Jarrett Allen, who was traded, he said kind of in one of his first made interviews as a Cavs player, he was asked would he made the trade. He went, well, yeah, probably. So it's like the players know what was kind of needed to take the team to the next level. And obviously some players have had to miss out on a likely ring in the coming years, but they know for the kind of greater good, and they kind of know what the script was. But with regards to my kind of general thoughts on Harden, goes without saying he's one of the best players who, in the past decade or whatever, I'm like Aidan, kind of was initially into basketball at the start of the decade, kind of fell out of love with it and got back into near the end of it. But yeah, Harden's always kind of been a player who you know, one of the kind of main names of the league, and yeah, a fantastic player and a real joy to watch.
Yeah, it's funny. I think you can, if you scroll back on our timeline of the podcast and then our YouTube channel, you'll probably have about 4 or 5 episodes practically dedicated to what we think about James Harden and how he'll fit on the Nets. But, you know, I'll put my hands up. I was just like, but he's a diva. He wants out of Houston. We don't need that negativity on this team. He's not even that great. We've already got KD and Kyrie and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, to echo what you guys said, you'd still have him on your team in a heartbeat. So James, I would, for full thoughts on what we think about James Harden pre the trade, have a little look back at those past episodes. But yeah, we're definitely more than happy to have him now. And yeah, scary hours are here. The Big Three era is back in Brooklyn, and yeah, it's very, very exciting times to be a Net fan. So now we're looking ahead. So as we've said, we're recording it just before the Wizards game. So we've got 4 games to sort of preview. So tonight is at the Wizards, followed by Tuesday night. We are playing host to the Clippers. Then Friday night, we play host to the Toronto Raptors before going back to back on Saturday at the Sixers in Philly. Gentlemen, how do you think these next 4 games are going to go?
I mean, based on kind of previous meetings with some of the teams who obviously lost to the Wizards early on, they're now sitting rock bottom of the East with 3 wins and 12 losses. I mean, I don't think there's any possible excuse not to win this one. We quite simply have to kind of rebound and beat these teams. Obviously, we've now managed to show that we can beat teams who've previously beaten us, obviously in the past week with the Hawks and OKC. So, yeah, I'd fully expect us to win this one. The Sixers, we beat them previously, and it'll be interesting to see how we kind of deal with this one. Obviously, Jarrett Allen, the night we did beat the Sixers, played absolutely superb, and obviously that proved to be one of his final games. And without him now, it'll be, I think, one of the key matchups is going to be certainly whoever's up against Joel Embiid, because we're going to need to keep him quiet. Jarrett Allen done quite a good job at that. Obviously, Embiid, you're not going to manage to stop him all the time, but I think Allen done quite well to limit the damage that Embiid could cause. And yeah, maybe a few worries there. With regards to the Clippers, we've not played them yet, so can't really say much. But obviously, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, 2 of the league's premier players. So I think that's going to be a really, really fantastic game. And potentially even, I'm going to kind of throw it out there, a potential like preview the finals. The Clippers, obviously last year, maybe didn't quite live up to the expectations. But as we've all kind of said in the Discord, we're not all that convinced by the Lakers. And obviously someone's got to come out the West. And why not? Why couldn't that be the Clippers? So yeah, I think that will probably be the toughest game we face this week. And then obviously we finish I'm saying before we finish the week against the Sixers, we also play the Raptors. One of the worst teams in the East so far, but a team only a few seasons ago who were the league champions. And yeah, maybe not got the stars they once did, but yeah, got to be wary of that one. But yeah, I'm going to say we'll go 2-2 just to be safe. I think we will maybe lose to the Sixers and then, yeah, maybe slip up in one of the other games. But yeah, we'll wait and see. You know what I'm like with predictions.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting week, and it's one that I remember when the schedule got released that I was quite excited for. Obviously, we play the Wizards tonight. As of now, James Harden's questionable to play after getting a knock on in the last game on Friday. So we'll see how we get on there. But I don't think there'll be too many issues against the Wizards now. I think early on we were still trying to figure things out when we played them last. But yeah, I think we should be beating the Wizards, and there shouldn't be too many issues there. Tuesday night is going to be a blockbuster against the Clippers. It's going to be really special. I think obviously Leonard and George were out for a bit with protocols, and they look like they're going to be back. I don't know if they'll potentially be settled back in, but I'm actually happy that they're going to be playing, because I think it's going to be really important that we do test ourselves against these type of teams. And as Cammy said, personally, I think they're going to be coming out of the West at the end of all this. I think they needed last season to find their feet in the league. But yeah, I fancy ourselves to actually win that one again. But it'll be a really, really good test. Yeah, the Raptors on Friday night, yeah, they've not been great. I actually think this could be the season where they blow it all up and decide to start again. It's just not working since they lost Gasol last year, and then obviously Kawhi a couple of years ago. They just don't seem to be gelling well. So I see us winning that one again. And then, yeah, I've put down 3-1 for this week, because I think the Sixers could be where we slip up this week. for reasons that Cammy mentioned, that Embiid is going to be a tough matchup when we don't have Jarrett Allen in there. But who knows? We could sweep this week again just because we're playing so well. But yeah, I'll say 3-1 just to play it safe.
Nice. Yeah, I think obviously by the time this goes out, we would have already beaten the Wizards, hopefully. So I hope that's almost a given. A quick pause just to say how bad I feel for Bradley Beal, putting up 1 million points every game and being 3-12 or whatever they are. But I don't feel so bad for him that I hope the Nets lose. So there's that. Tuesday against the Clippers is set to be an absolute stormer of a game. Both us and the Clippers are going to be well rested. So yeah, there's going to be should be no excuses. Like you say, it's going to be really good to really test our mettle against the best teams at the best times. So that's going to be really, really exciting. That could go either way. Friday against the Raptors, you guys have both kind of said it. Then they're not the Raptors of yesteryear. I think it all went to pot when they got rid of Rondé Hollis-Jefferson personally, and the good stuff he bought. And then Saturday against the Sixers, it's a shame that game against the Sixers comes off the back of the second night of a back-to-back for us, because that would have been another one to really sort of put down and aim for. It's also at home, and I think the Sixers have got a really, really good home record again this season. I've got 2-2 as well. I'm more confident about the Clippers game than I am about the Sixers game for some reason. Like you say, I think we get up for these hard games. We're going to have plenty of rest, a good couple of days. However, it will be interesting against the Sixers. Maybe that's the Norval Pell revenge game. I know Joel Embiid had some good things to say about Pell, so it's his former team, so maybe he can give us a little bit of an insight, and he'll know his Achilles heel. But time will tell. That's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed listening. Thanks again to you guys, Aidan and Cammy, for joining me. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on socials. If you're watching the YouTube version of this, make sure you go to our Teespring store and grab some merch. Cammy's been an absolute demon with his designs recently. Got a really sick Joey Buckets tee, a load of cool Nets World t-shirts. So pick yourself up something from there and help support the cause. And yeah, thanks for everyone for sending in your questions, and we'll see you next week.